No problem.
Like that.
Live now, eh? Okay.
We are live now. Hi, everybody. Really happy to be live with A J Liddle. Do you want to start us off with an intro to you and your latest book?
Certainly all. Yes, thank you. And I'm very delighted to be here as well with Kaz and the UK Crime Book Club, which is really quite a remarkable institution considering the size and the number of members within the club. But thank you, Kaz, for inviting me. I'm Alistair Liddle. I write under the name of A J Liddle, and I've recently published the fourth book in the Ramaz the Nazi series. That's a detective thriller based in Tbilisi, the capital city of the Republic of Georgia. And this particular book, No Murder Forgotten, starts off with a pretty nasty but very efficient murder. And times being as they are, the killer posts on social media claiming to be Fenrir. Fenrir's the wolf from Norse mythology. And he compares his victim to a sheep, and he says there will be more victims, because where there are sheep, the wolves are never very far away. So that was quite a kind of chilly start to the book. And a few days later, there's another murder in very similar circumstances, and the police believe that there's a serial killer on the loose in Tbilisi. And that's where the story heads. But of course, it diverges from that, and there's a lot more going on than initially meets the eye, and that's where the story takes you.
You've got some other references to Fenrir as well, though, haven't you, into like video games and things?
Yes, so Fenrir, although he started off in Norse mythology, he's used in some video games as well. So he's a kind of mystic wolf with supernatural powers, and he's actually quite famous across some different mediums, as you say, Kaz. Yeah. I'd never heard of him before. I just did some research about famous wolves, and Fenrir came up, but it seemed very appropriate to use him.
I knew who he was, but I didn't know about the references to the video games.
Yeah. And I didn't know that quote either, where there are sheep, the wolves are never far away. That was a Roman playwright, Plautus, I think I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced, but Plautus. And that was one of his quotes.
Right. So did you... I'm going to guess that the idea of building in like the mythology came after that, if you started by searching for famous wolves. Did you have the idea to try and find the story to fit?
Yeah, well, as a kind of a notorious pantser, that's what I do. You know, I don't really have a story plotted out at the beginning, and it just takes me where it takes me. And the finished story bears absolutely no resemblance to how I thought I might start and finish when I began nearly 2 years ago now.
I think it bears a lot of the hallmarks of what we've come to know and love from the series, though.
Sorry,
I said I think it bears a lot of the hallmarks of what we've come to know and love from the series.
All right. Oh yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I know you've read all the books, and you've always been very complimentary about them, and that's much appreciated.
But you've still built in like the love of Georgian food and wine that's in there every time. Like there's always a lot of discussion of that, isn't there?
Yeah, I try and make these kind of references because something I like in books is if you can have a good, exciting read, you know, a thrilling kind of read, that's great. But if you also can learn something about a place or, you know, or a culture, I think that's good as well. And it's what I like to read when I'm reading books, and that's why I do it with my stories as well. Georgia's a place where most people in this country haven't been to. It is getting more popular now, certainly, for tourism, but most people haven't been there. So if I can, in a sense, transport readers to that country and give them a taste of what it's like there, then that's I like doing that. And I'm qualified to do so because I lived there for 15 years, so I know the country pretty well, and the people and the culture. So
yeah. We've talked about this before, because it's quite a thing to have lived somewhere that long.
Yeah. Well, I've kind of been a traveller all my life, really, because I started off my working life in the Merchant Navy, so I was at sea a lot of the time, and then I had some jobs, sort of Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, or shift working. But then for 15 years, I was in Georgia, either in Georgia or I've spent a bit of time in London as well. Actually, I was doing a project work for Georgia. So yeah, I've kind of travelled around a bit, which has been good and bad. So obviously there's downsides, being away from the family, but it's makes for a interesting life as well.
It does. Did you not take your family with you?
Not to Georgia, no. We travelled around a fair bit within the UK as part of my job. So we lived in Edinburgh, then we went to Newcastle, then we went to Shetland, and then we went to Humberside. And when we came back to Scotland, I said to Jackie, my wife, that I would try not to move the family again. We came to Stirling, where I live now, where we live now. And I said, I'll try not to move you again. And succeeded in doing that. But I did say I might have to move, and I did, but that's just the nature of my job. But Jackie was here with the kids, and that gave them a bit of stability as well, because they used to be devastated when they said to them, we're moving, new school, new home. It's a shame.
Yeah, I've had that experience.
Did you?
Yeah. As a kid, new school, new house. It's quite a fun adventure, though, at times.
Yeah. The kids are very adaptable, and they do adapt and make new friends and all the rest of it. But it's a very daunting prospect, I think, for kids to pick up sticks and go to a new school and have to make new friends again and be the new kid in the classroom. I mean, you'll know all about that, being a teacher yourself. You'll have seen that happen so many times.
Yeah. Yeah. The new kids. I think it's a challenge for anyone being a new kid somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah. Even a new job, and when you don't know people, and
you start a new job, that can be a daunting prospect, can't it?
Yep.
So carrying on with the books, we've covered why you're an expert in the setting. One of the things I enjoy about them is how the characters develop through the series as well.
Yeah.
We're not just getting like a crime read every time. We're sort of learning about Ramaz and his family, and
he's been in my life now for 5 years. Written 4 books in 5 years, and he has changed quite a lot. The very first book, he was quite a kind of bitter, antagonistic sort of character, but things have worked out well for him. He's married to the love of his life. He's got a daughter who he absolutely dotes on, and so he's not quite. He's working better with his colleagues in the force. He's got a partner who kind of keeps him on the straight and narrow, and she's very good for him as well. So he's kind of mellowed out over the years of it, as we should all do, I think, but we don't always.
he can't help himself, but not. He still pokes and antagonizes people a little bit, though, doesn't he? Doesn't quite play by the rules all the time.
Yeah, he doesn't like authority. He doesn't like being told what to do, and he doesn't. His heart's in the right place most of the time. But when he comes up against somebody who he doesn't like, or he doesn't feel has the right values, then he kind of reacts badly against them.
I think it's quite interesting. You do like an author's note at the back as well, and explain sort of the things that influence you for the story.
Yeah. So this particular book. So Jackie and I, my wife, went to Georgia to visit last year, 2024. It kind of coincided with International Book Day, International Book International Day, when we celebrate writing and books. And we hadn't really planned it that way, but I got invited to give a couple of talks at Prospero's bookshop a museum there, and also a bar, Brown's Bar, which is quite a famous expat bar in Tbilisi. So I did some talks there, but while we were there, we got the usual welcome that we got. The Georgian people are really friendly, very outgoing, and so we got our usual welcome. But one thing which was obvious to me was that Georgia was very much concerned with the events going on in Ukraine, understandably, because Georgia herself, she was at war with Russia in 2008, and it's no secret that Putin would like to re-establish either the USSR or the Russian Empire, and he sees countries like Georgia, which were former Soviet republics, as part of his domain, really, and he wants to get them back. So the people in Georgia were very nervous, and where it came out was a lot of graffiti, anti-Russian graffiti in the city. There's a scene in the book where I described the Nazi intercepting somebody spraying anti-Russian message on the walls. But there was that, and there was also the number of Russians who were in Tbilisi dodging the draft. I think something like 100,000 Russians who were flooded into Tbilisi, young men just trying to avoid being conscripted into the war. So that's had quite an effect as well on how the city feels.
Yeah, it's a thing I think that you got across quite well in the story, because there's that moment with the graffiti, but there's also a couple of other moments, isn't there, where there's sort of young Russian men causing
misbehaving, hanging about, drinking too much and misbehaving. Yeah,
which I thought was quite interesting. Because this one feels like it's happening later than some of the other series. I know it took you longer to write, but it feels like there's been a little passage of time between the cases that have happened before.
Yeah, there is. It all works out. I hope it all works out on a timeline. As I mentioned in my kind of author's notes, this book was based around our visit last year, so that'd be 2024, which was where we observed all this, the kind of Russian influx and the anti-Russian sentiment. So that's when it was. But yeah, it's gone from 2020 to 2024 over 4 books. And the character should have aged, like the baby is not a baby anymore, but she should be the right age for 2024. If that makes sense. If I've done my sum correctly.
Good. So you are keeping track. So as much as you're saying you're a pantser, you are keeping track of some stuff if you've aged the baby correctly. And
that's right. Yeah. So although I'm kind of making up the script the plot as I go along, it's I don't want people to say, well, that baby should be 36 by now, or something like that. It's got to work across the series.
Do people notice stuff like that? Would you get a message saying?
Yeah, I think you would. Yeah, I mean, somebody would point out to me. I was in Tbilisi, and somebody came along, and they took exception to the amount of cocaine I had in a stash in a previous book. He said, "You never get that much cocaine coming into Tbilisi." I said, "I think you might," because I'd actually researched it, and it wasn't coming into Tbilisi, but it wasn't a particularly massive stash of cocaine. It was big, but it wasn't unfeasible, I thought. But it's funny that the things people pick up on and bring to your attention. But they're entitled to do that. That's fine as well.
Yeah. Do you is Ramaz going to get to the point where he's reaching retirement age? I don't think how old he is.
Yeah, if you were to go back in time, you see he started off in his kind of early 30s, so he's not 40 yet, so he's got a bit to go. But it's a thing, isn't it? Some characters in some books you just become too old for the series, like Michael Connolly's Harry Bosch books. He just got too old, and they had to retire him and then find another way to bring him into the story. And so as you can run into that problem if you start your characters too old early on. Daxi's still got a bit of time left, I think.
He feels like he's got an older attitude to life than at the age that he is, maybe. Potentially because he's a bit grumpy.
Yeah, yeah, and he's had a pretty tough life as well. You know, if you read the books, you'll know his family history, which is quite tragic, and that kind of drives him in a lot of ways. You know, so he is a kind of driven guy, and he's not footloose and fancy at all, is he? He's a very serious character.
Yeah, no, he really is. I think the cast of characters around him in the police bring a lot to the books as well. If you know what I mean. I think you're not just relying on him to carry the story, are you? There's a lot of other great characters.
Yeah, well, good. Yeah, I'm glad you think that. Yeah, there's some of the characters. Yeah, I like very much Levan Glavelli, who's his retired policeman, his friend and mentor. I think he brings quite a lot to the stories, and his senior boss, Colonel Meshke, who he's got a very fractious relationship with. I think he brings something to it as well. So they're kind of different people, and of course his partner Irina Jekeli, I think she's quite a good counter to him. And yeah, so I'm glad you like them, because that's what I tried to do, is to kind of make it a kind of more of a rounded story with rather than just concentrating on the main character himself.
Well, his relationship with Mekshi is one that sort of brings the humour, isn't it? Because he's deliberately trying to annoy him at times,
That's right.
which I think is quite good.
Yeah. He tries to wind up Meshke, and then he gets a row from Jekeli, his partner, for doing it, because he knows he shouldn't be doing it, but he just can't help himself.
There's a nice moment in this one where he goes to a bar for like old servicemen.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. You based that in a real place, or?
The bar doesn't exist. That's just one I made up. But yeah, I mean, I introduced in the first story that Donazzi had served. He was conscripted into the army, as every man in Georgia has to be for a year, national service. So I did bring that in, and I thought it'd be quite a nice thing to expand upon in this book, that getting in touch with one of his old comrades, who was quite a complex character in himself. And the bar itself, I thought, was quite enjoyed writing about that. You know, all the old army types in there, and they're all kind of quite bitter, and they're all drinking to get drunk. And yeah, so I thought that worked quite well.
It does. It's a nice. It's an interesting atmosphere, hasn't it? It's and you knew the bar owner's quite an interesting new character.
Yeah. I thought so. It's it was. He's quite a tragic guy in his own right, wasn't he? He was a born soldier, but circumstances overtook him.
Yeah, and I think but the way you've built him in it, where he's like set up this bar to kind of help other people who are struggling as well, is quite nice.
Yeah, good.
Nice idea.
Yeah, thank you.
How many books do you plan to have in the series?
Well, I think I'm going to kind of pause Donazzi for a little while, and you and I were having a chat earlier, weren't we? And what I was suggesting was, we were thinking about was maybe doing a prequel, going back to when I first went to Georgia, which was 2003. That was a very interesting time for the country, because 2003 was the year they had the Rose Revolution, when the old president, Edward Shevardnadze, was kicked out by Misha Saakashvili, new president, and he made so many changes. It was just incredible. And I kind of witnessed that. So it's quite an interesting time in Georgia's history. So I was thinking about writing a prequel to the Nazi books, the Nazi wouldn't be in them because he wasn't in the police at that point. But a couple of the other characters, maybe such as Colonel Meshke, who we talked about, he'd be a more junior officer at the time. And the Nazi's friend and mentor, Levan Glavelli, he'd be a serving senior police officer at the time. So that's the kind of thing I'm thinking about at the moment. I haven't made up my mind yet fully, but that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
I think seeing Glavelli in action in his own story would be great.
Yeah.
Is he a bit of a fan favourite character? He's one of my favourites in it.
Yeah, no, people tell me they really like him. There's one friend we have who says if it ever becomes a TV series, I want to play Glavelli. He's about the right age and probably about the right temperament and disposition. So he says he wants to play Glavelli. I said, okay. If it ever becomes a TV series, I'll see what I can do.
See, one of our favourite questions in the group is, if it was made into a TV series, what would you want to be?
What would I want to be?
Yeah, would you want to make an appearance?
Oh well, I'd love to. Not that I can act, but yeah, I'd probably want to be Colonel Meshke. I think that'd be me. I'd be kind of strict and straight-laced, and I probably look more like him than anyone else because he's a very tall character, and I'm 6'3", so we probably look quite similar, except he's younger than me. But apart from that, I'd play Colonel Meshke.
Do you have similar problems like we have in our house? Because I've got quite a tall husband. You have lots of need to get things off top shelves and banging your head into stuff. And
yeah, definitely, yeah. It's nothing worse, isn't it? You've got a cupboard door open and you stand up, you crack your head on the cupboard door. It's terrible.
Yeah, he bangs his head into quite a lot of things.
It's a real drawback to being tall. How tall is your husband?
He is 6'6".
Oh man, that's makes me look small. He'd be good at basketball though.
No, he's terrible at hate sport. He's really nerdy. He's like, yeah, not a sports guy.
My wife Jackie, she's not particularly tall. She's about 5'3", I think. So there's about a foot between us.
Yeah, there's like a foot between us as well. It's entertaining.
You make it work. You make it work.
Yeah, you do. It's a good thing in the end. So, based on the rest of your travels, is there anywhere else in the world that you'd like to write a book?
Yeah. The easy option would be for me to write a book in Scotland. I was born and brought up in Edinburgh, and it'd be quite easy for me to write a book based in Edinburgh, but then I'd be competing with Sir Ian Rankin, and I don't really want to do that. So if I was writing another book, I would probably take it either to London or somewhere in America. That's not the obvious places, I don't think, not the big cities in America, but I'd find probably somewhere a bit smaller and more interesting rather than New York or Washington, D.C. or someplace like that. So I have spent quite a lot of time in America as well, and so I think I know the country. I don't know the country very well, but I know enough to write a novel around it.
T.G. Campbell is watching, and she says, if you could have coffee with anyone living or dead, who would you choose and why?
Oh, what a good story. Good question. I mean, well, if it was an author, it'd be one of my heroes, I think, and I think one of my literary heroes he's dead now, unfortunately, John le Carré. I think he was such a beautiful writer. You know, I read his books and I'd reread sections just to try to understand why it was so good. You know, to try and get my head around why is this so good, and so I read it 2 or 3 times, just full of admiration for the quality of his writing. Michael Connolly, he's a living writer. He's my favourite crime writer, the Harry Bosch Lincoln lawyer books. So I'd quite like to spend some time with him. But if it wasn't an author, it'd probably be a rock and roller, maybe Keith Richards, or I was a big David Bowie fan, but he's dead now as well, unfortunately. But I would love to have met David Bowie and had a chat with him, because he was another hero of mine.
Good answers.
Thank you.
So have you not, because you must go to all the literary festivals and things, so you've probably got a fair chance of bumping into some of your author heroes.
Well, Bloody Scotland just took place here in Stirling, where we live, so it's great. I mean, the people who were here for that festival is incredible. It's like, Serene Rankin was here, Val McDermott, she's usually here, I think she was here, Joe Nesbo, he was here, J.D. Kirk, a load of big names, and a whole lot of maybe not so big names, but still very good authors. And it's I've got to know quite a few now, actually. It's great. It's great to be able to wander into the town and bump into one of your friends who's also an author. But yeah, so that's Bloody Scotland. I was also at Butte Noir quite recently. That's a festival in the Isle of Bute. I chaired a panel there, so that was very good. I really enjoyed that. That's the first time I've chaired a panel, and I really enjoyed it. But time before that, I was at Barlinnie Prison, giving a talk to the prisoners and some of the guards, and that was a very interesting visit, but really very enjoyable. And the prisoners were great, actually. They're a great audience, very, very polite, and they listened very attentively and gave me a couple of rounds of applause. And then they all, at the end of that event, they all, didn't all, but quite a few of them came across and shook hands with me and thanked me. And I thought, wow, what a great bunch of guys. So that was really nice.
That's not really nice. Sterling's Bloody Scotland's one of the reasons we got to know you as an author, isn't it? Because you're on the debut prize. Yeah,
so that was my first book, No Harm Done. That was shortlisted for the Bloody Scotland debut prize, and that was brilliant. Actually, that was such a great honour, and for my first book to be recognised that way gave me a lot of encouragement, and that's where I got to meet quite a lot of people through Bloody Scotland, and I've kind of kept that network going. Some really good people.
I think you were one of the first times we started doing the interviews with people on the debut and the McIlvanney list, or you were in the first few batches of people we did like that. Yeah. And it's just so many of my favourite authors and books come from those lists every year. It's ridiculous how good the quality is of what they pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, there's a lot of really good crime writers on the go at the moment, and really good quality. No difficulty at all finding great books to read.
But the prizes I would pay attention to are the Sterling, like the Bloody Scotland ones, because when I've put to interview people who are on it and things like that, they've always been outstanding.
Yeah.
Like they know how to pick a book.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and I mean the McIlvanney Prize is a very prestigious prize, and there's some very successful authors compete to win it. So it's really good.
It is. You are still hands down one of my favourite debut prize authors, so that's been on there.
Oh, thanks. Thank you very much. That's very, very kind of you.
You and Kate Foster.
Right. Okay.
My top two, kind of.
Yeah. Well, you've been a very loyal reader for me, because you've as we said, you gave me that interview early on, and that was much appreciated. And you've read all 4 of my books and been very kind about all 4 of them. So
I have been a big fan. They're really good books. I think what's interesting is obviously you know Georgia really well, and that comes across. But it's setting it somewhere like that, like you said, it's a learning experience, isn't it? So you're reading it and you're learning about the country and the culture, and sort of somewhere that you you don't know as well,
Mm-hmm.
I think makes it fascinating. And then the way you've done that would work, I think, for like one book for sure. But then because you work so hard at building that sort of network of characters around it, you stay involved.
Yeah, no, that's good. And that's my intention, of course, is to write a good, exciting story, a thriller, but also to to kind of introduce aspects of a different culture and a different place, someplace that most people won't visit in their lifetime. But yeah, so it's good. I think it's good in that respect.
How do you keep coming up with plots for him?
It's not easy. I try and think of what are the big themes of the day. In the past, I've covered sort of money laundering and people trafficking and modern slavery, these kind of things. The first book, of course, was based around a fictional gas pipeline, and by coincidence, I was working on a gas pipeline when I was in Georgia initially. That's what. So I was writing what I knew then, and so it's finding the big themes and trying to apply that to make it a kind of Georgian context. So when I was writing about people smuggling, for example, Georgia is one of the transit countries for people smuggling. It's Georgians, people coming into Georgia, or Jordans even been smuggled out of the country to places in Europe predominantly. So it's finding the big themes and doing a bit of research around it and seeing how I can apply that to into Georgian context.
Which makes a lot of sense. You've got a link to Scotland in this story as well, haven't you? Because you've got someone who's foreign national.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it would be quite interesting. I just came up with that idea. I thought, well, there's going to be somebody involved in the story, so rather than have him just as another Georgian, I could make him a foreign national, and just so happens that he turned out to be Scottish, and not only was he Scottish, but he was also the son of the British Home Secretary. So that introduced a kind of a bit of complexity and a bit of tension into the story, because the Georgian police have got to deal with this very senior British politician and the entourage which surrounds him as well through the British embassy and etc. So I thought, I was quite pleased with that little subplot.
Yeah, I was quite interested when it happened, because Ramaz is not exactly well known for being Mr. Tact, is he?
No, he's not. And he wasn't.
No, to be a politician and you're like, this isn't going to go well.
You're right.
But it did bring a nice sort of, I think, a sort of interesting thing in, because I would imagine that there are situations where politicians get involved in things like that, and they might not know a lot about the country.
Yeah, no, they won't. What would a British Home Secretary know about Georgia unless he's been briefed, unless there was some British interest in there which would cause them to find out about it? But no, you're right. He wouldn't know much about it at all.
No, and I don't think I knew a lot about it before I read your books. I've seen the rugby team.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not a place many people go to. I could, before I started working there, I think I could just about place Georgia on the map. Just about, I would be, without seeing the borders drawn, I would be a bit uncertain. So I knew very little about the country myself before I went out there. But having been there for so long, I came to, and I travelled around quite a lot within Georgia, different jobs and looking after different areas of responsibility that I did learn a fair bit about it. I got to know a lot of Georgian people who are still my friends and great people. So it's Georgia is becoming more established on the tourist map now, which to a certain extent is a shame, because tourism tends to spoil a country, I would say. And I would imagine Georgia will become corrupted with tourism. They'll learn the value of tourists and how they can extract more money from them. And it won't be such a great place to visit. Well, it will still be a great place to visit, but it won't be. It'll change. The nature of the country will change, I think.
I think you'll still have those moments, though, won't you? Like we lived in Turkey for a while when I was young, and we did the sort of traveling around and things because we were there and we could, and like you'd want to see as much as you could. But I think when you live somewhere, you see it very differently to if you're a tourist there.
Yeah.
Because you'll go to places that tourists wouldn't go to. You'll go and you'll see sort of the home lives and all of that, which is probably what enriches your story. But it's like a thing that I don't think, tourists are never going to see that.
No, you're absolutely right. So I talk a lot about the food and the wine, and food and wine's a great thing in Georgia. And a supra is a fantastic event. A supra is a feast. And if you go to Georgia as a tourist, then they might organise a supra for you, but it won't be a proper supra. You won't have a proper supra unless you're there with Georgians. You'll get some sanitized version of it, and it's the same with So I've been to lots. My friends have been kind enough to invite me to their homes. I've been to Georgian weddings, Georgian funerals, and they're all different, and the people themselves are different from us, but not in a bad way. Just nature of people. People aren't all the same. Different cultures, different histories make people different.
Well, there's different approaches to things, isn't there? Because although the crimes happen and they're dealt with because all crimes are going to be dealt with in a very similar way, aren't they? You're going to call out certain people and things. They all have that. They do sort of have a different style in your book, and you must have had to do some research into like the policing systems and things like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm very lucky. One of my friends is a guy called Sandro Chatzi, and I used to work for BP in Georgia, and he was BP's security manager. Sorry, still is BP's security manager. But Sandro is also a former policeman, and so he knows all there is to know about the Georgian police. So not only does he keep me straight on policing matters, but he's one of my Georgian friends who kind of keep me straight on aspects of Georgian culture. So if I'll write something about George, how a father might talk to his young daughter, for example, the kind of phrases he would use to speak to his young daughter. So Sandro and my other Georgian friends will correct me when I get that wrong, and that's good because it makes for authenticity, I think. And although most of my readers would know the difference, if I got it wrong, I would know the difference, and also the Georgians who also read my books would know the difference as well. So getting it right authentically is quite important to me, and that's so. Police procedural matters. They're not that much different in Georgia, I don't think. It's the same. It's a science, isn't it? So the science transfers between countries, but slightly different approach and a different history as well.
Yeah, there's like a universal language of science, isn't there? Which I think is quite interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
As a science teacher, I do like there being a universal language of science. But so you sprinkle bits of the language throughout as well, which is quite nice. That's a bit of a learning.
Yeah. I like the use of your phrase sprinkled, because that's what I do. It's a bit like salt and pepper. You can season your story with some salt and pepper, but in this case, it's a few Georgian words and phrases, and I don't use too many but I use a few, and it's just again to add that kind of sense of place. I think, you know, to give the reader that kind of sense that they're in a different country, different culture. And what I do is I try to say it in context. So if for example, if two people are drinking wine and one says Gamar Jos, you would guess that means cheers, you know, which it does. So you know, in Gamar Joba is hello, good day sort of thing. So it should be obvious to the reader. But I would say actually, a few people suggested to me that I should write a glossary and put it in my books to explain these words and phrases and also the references to the wine and the food. And I did think about doing that, but then I thought, wouldn't it be better if you could actually hear that spoken by a Georgian? So quite recently, and I put this on, it's on my website, it's a little video, me speaking to one of my Georgian friends, Maka, and we talk about how Georgians say good day, thank you. We talk a lot about Georgian wine. Georgia invented wine 8,000 years ago, and that's true. How that came about, and some of the Georgian food that I like, and you know, you might come across in the books like hachapuri and stuff like that. So if anybody's interested, you should go to my website. It's ajlidlebooks.com, ajlidlebooks.com, and you'll find that little video with me and Maka if you're interested in learning a bit more about the Georgian words and the you know, the kind of food and wine that we talk about. As a plug.
You could almost make a, you know how like Peter May's got a Hebrides book and like Anne Cleves has got Shetland, and like they do a little book with all the pictures and the information about the places and stuff. You could almost do that, like Ramaz's Guide to Georgia.
Yeah. Good idea.
Like pictures and like wine suggestions and like recipes and things like that.
Yeah.
I bet a lot of your fans would buy it out of interest.
Yeah. No, it's not a bad idea. We had some Georgian wine the other day there, actually. We had a book event at the local museum here in Stirling. It was Adam Oy Banji and me. Adam's a crime science fiction writer, and we were kind of chatting around books and writing. But we bribed the audience to come along with the promise of some free Georgian wine. So they came along. They got some white wine, Sinandali, or some red wine, Mukazani. These are both the Nazis' favourite wines and mine by coincidence. So it was quite a good event actually, because not only did we chat about books and writing for about an hour, but we also had 2 or 3 glasses of wine, which made the event go very well.
And with Adam, who is one of the nicest men in crime as well.
Yeah, Adam's a real very, very accomplished man, actually, as I'm sure you found out, and he's got some history.
Yeah, I interviewed him for his recent book,
Esperance, yeah, it's a good book, isn't it? Kind of science fiction crime. Yeah, I don't normally read science fiction, but I love that book.
See, I do enjoy a bit of science fiction, and it was exactly the kind of book I would enjoy.
Yeah, no, that's good.
It got sent to me to do an interview with him, and I was like, this is exactly the kind of book I would buy and read.
Yeah, no, I loved it. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
so
I've got another Yeah, I thought that too. I've got one. I got one signed at Harrogate by him. That's another one of his books, because I bought it after the interview. I don't know where I put it, but it is somewhere in the pile of books. It's quite big, look.
Wow. That's a pile of books.
Yeah, it's a pile of red books, that one.
Is it? You must read at a phenomenal rate, because I'm quite a slow reader, and it's a bit of a handicap for me. But I don't know how people can get through a book as quickly as like yourself. I just don't know what the trick is.
I don't know if there is a trick. I could read when I was quite young, Like my brother taught me to read when I was little, so I could read when I was 3. And I've always read a lot, and I do read quite quickly, but it's just I don't actually know how.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just the pace I read at.
I started off slow, but I'm reading even more slowly now because I tend to kind of dissect books as I read them. So I'll read a section which is I thought, well, that's really good, and I'll read it again, you know, to try and figure out why it was so good, or I'll read a section. I thought, that doesn't look. How would I have written that, you know, to make that a bit less clumsy, or you know, a bit more understandable. So I started off slow, and I've become slower.
But then I can see that if you're an author, I think you would read books differently.
Yeah.
Because you'd be interested in how they were created. What have you read then recently and enjoyed?
Well, I just read a book, and it was recommended by J.D. Kirk, who was at the Bloody Scotland just the last couple of weeks, and it was a book called The Killer Inside Me by Jim Thompson. Have you read that? It's a bit of a cult, popular cult book. It's written in the first person by a policeman in America who's psychopathic, essentially, and but it's very powerful because it's written in the first person, and everybody thinks this guy's just a very easygoing, not very bright guy, but he's actually extremely intelligent and extremely scheming, and it's a very good read. It's a good recommendation.
I'll have to add it to my list of things to look at.
Yeah, that was good. I would recommend it. The book I read before that was Adam's Esperance, because I wanted to read it before our event.
Yeah, and that, as we've discussed, is a really good read.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's on my books that I really enjoyed this year, along with yours.
Thanks. Do you? So you'll have a pile of books that you want to read, and you'll have a pile of books that you have to read, really, because of what you're doing with the Crime Book Club. Do you find it a bit of a chore sometimes to have to read some of these books?
Yeah, no, not a chore in the sense of having to read a book. It can stop you reading things that you bought for yourself to read, if you know what I mean. Sometimes,
Yeah.
you've got
That's
a
what
list
I mean. Yeah.
But it can also be quite fun because it challenges you to try things that you wouldn't normally read.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I've discovered some books that I probably would never have bought for myself, and then really enjoyed, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
During the chats.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have read Esperance, Adam's book, if I hadn't been doing this event with him, and because I don't normally read science fiction, but I'm glad I did. And you know, as I say, I will go back and read the rest of his books now, and at some point.
See, I 100% would have discovered that one because I do read sci-fi, but I've read sort of things like spy thrillers and stuff that I've really enjoyed that I wouldn't have bought.
Yeah.
Not really a kind of spy
Spy stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really into that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I like his espionage books, and mentioned John le Carre. That was his big thing, of course. The Smiley books and all these.
Yeah, I read a good one last year. I think it was called The Diplomat or something like that. I can't remember the exact title, but it was by a guy who was a diplomat in the Lebanon.
Okay.
And that was a good one. Because he obviously knew what it was. It's a bit like you when you're writing about Ramaz and Tbilisi and things. He'd lived the life of what he was writing about, so you knew that he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, it sounded like he knew what he was talking about. That makes it a more authentic read, doesn't it?
It does. And I think that's a thing that I always appreciate is two of the things I really like about books is if they've got a lot of really interesting characters you can get really involved in. And if you believe that the author knows a lot about the world that you're reading.
Yep.
And I think those are really important things.
Yeah.
I want to feel like I'm in good hands with an author, that they know what they're telling me about.
Yeah. always think it's a big investment to not just of your money, but of your time, isn't it? I mean, if you commit to reading a book, for me to read a book, it'd take me a couple of weeks minimum, 3 weeks, more often. So it's a big investment in my time, and I don't want my time to be wasted. So yeah, you want something which is, one, you're going to enjoy, but two, you're going to get something out of it. Yeah, I've learned something about another country or another culture, or it's a bit more about the sort of diplomatic service or whatever it is.
Or just that you've been in capable hands of something that's going to draw you in and keep your attention.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it doesn't have to be something real, I don't think, for me to read it, but I do want to feel like I'm in good hands.
Yeah.
Which is why I can't believe that you said you're a pantser, because your books are always really detailed.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, it's strange I'm a pantser, actually, because when I first started writing, I kind of learned these terms, pantsers and plotters, and I'd assumed that I'd be a plotter because that's what I did in my job, working in oil and gas. It's very much a case of planning your work, scheduling it, putting in the resources, and then there's a phrase which is plan the work, work the plan. And I thought, well, that's my nature, that's my background. I'll take the same approach to books. But turns out I'm a pantser, which has surprised me, excuse me, as much as anyone else. But it's just what I am. And there's, and as you know, there's a lot of very famous authors who are also pantsers, like Stephen King, for example. Michael Connelly, one of my heroes, he's a pantser as well. So you wouldn't think so, would you, when you start reading their books? Think, very well plotted out and great storylines and everything. But I would find it really difficult to sit down and think a book through from start to finish. People use techniques like spreadsheets and all of it, but I would find it very hard to kind of envisage a full book and then write it up. But people do that, and they're successful. It's just the way your brain's wired, I think.
Anne Cleave says she's a pantser.
Is she right?
As well, yeah. So she doesn't know what's going on when she starts writing a book. And I was having this conversation with someone, I think it was Martin Edwards, and he said he doesn't believe that. He doesn't believe people are overly pantsers. He thinks you know how you structure your book in your head, and you might not write it down, but you'd still know what makes a good story.
Yeah. Might know what makes a good story, but my books are definitely. I mean, the Jack Reacher books. Lee Child says he doesn't know what he's going to write when he wakes up in the morning. He gets up in the morning and sits in front of his keyboard. He doesn't know what he's going to write, and that's very. I'm pretty much the same. Although by the time I get to the keyboard, I know what I'm going to write. But quite often I'll just sit and put the reclining chair back and daydream for 15-20 minutes till I get my head around what I'm going to write next. Then I'll get up and write something at the keyboard. That's the way I do it. So there's characters in that last book who I had no intention of adding when I first started the book, but they just kind of evolved, and it seemed right to bring them in, and it seemed right to bring them in with the characters, the natures, the temperaments that they had. But I certainly hadn't plotted it from the beginning.
TG, who was asking you the question earlier, says she's got great respect for pantsers. She can't do it.
Yeah, well, I can't plot, so it's it's just how your brain works. I think I've got lots of respect for people who can plot a book all the way through. Marion Todd, for example, I'm sure you know Marion Todd's books. She's a very much a plotter. She plots all her stories out in a spreadsheet, and she teaches other people how to do that. And she's very successful. She's a very prolific writer, but writing to a very high standard as well. So she's a plotter.
Her spreadsheet info is legendary, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
She is great. as well as an author. Love her books.
She's great. She's a great writer, but she's a lovely person. Actually, she's one of the nicest people I know in the writing circles.
I think crime writers are a nice bunch of people. I don't know if it's because they get their bad side out on the page. Like you murder people in their stories, and then are generally a nice bunch of folk when you met in real life.
That's been my experience, and been a lot of the people I've met. They've been very helpful to me as well. Especially as I kind of coming into writing quite late in life, and I got a lot of support, a lot of good feedback, a lot of authors who have agreed to read my book and give me some feedback and give me a quote which I've been able to use. So it's sometimes surprising because authors are busy people. Not only do they have to write, get all the words down, but they've like yourself, they're given other books to read and review, and they've got their festivals they have to attend. Excuse me. They tend to be quite busy people, so it's great that they're prepared to help out. And I try to do the same as well. I've been approached 2 or 3 times by people even sort of earlier down the writing journey than I was, and I've been able to give them some advice, and they've been very appreciative as well. So it's good.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? I think it's one of the things that's really strong in the Scottish writing festivals as well. That kind of support for authors going through from the beginning of their career onwards is very strong, which is probably why there's such a strong crime writing.
Yeah. Bloody Scotland's got that built into it. The crime in the spotlight and the debut prize and Pitch Perfect. That's another thing that they do. I'm not sure if they did that this year or not, but it allows new authors to sort of stand up and pitch their books in front of a literary audience, and I hope that maybe there'll be an agent there who'll pick up on it and offer them a deal. So yeah, Bloody Scotland and others, they're very much about helping the new authors coming through.
Right, we've got a couple of minutes left, so tell people who are watching what they're going to go away and buy. If they haven't already, maybe it's the first book or the new one, because they can be read as standalones, can't they? I think you could read them all as a standalone, but they're better in order
Yeah, like most series, I think. So I think the first book was No Harm Done, and that was a debut book of mine, which, as Kaz mentioned, it was shortlisted for the Bloody Scotland debut prize. So if you thought you were interested in reading these books based in Georgia, I would recommend you start with No Harm Done, and then if you like it, then you could go on to the next one, which is No Rules Apply, and if you like that, you could go on to the third one. Sorry, the second one's No Way Back, then No Rules Apply, and then No Murder Forgotten. But they're all available on Amazon if you want to Google any of these book titles or Google my name, A J Liddle, and have a look. And I'm always very interested in feedback, either through a review or through my website. I'm always grateful for people who take the time to tell me what they think went well and also what hasn't worked so well for them. And it's because it's all about self-learning, isn't it, and improvement. So, yeah, and that's it. So, thank you to Kaz very much for inviting me on there.
You're very welcome. I enjoy it. I like when you have a new book out. It's always something to look forward to.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, it's great. No, I appreciate it because it's people like you, Kaz, who help people like me. And I know there's not much in it for you personally, but it's very helpful for authors to get that kind of support.
Well, we enjoy it. I mean, really, we're just essentially a little band of people who love books, getting to talk to all the authors who write the books that we love. So it's exciting for us too.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.